All right, folks, welcome in. This is JE Live, and of course, I have my guest here, Jets expert Richie Maulura. How you doing, man? Really excited to collab with you. I've been a big fan of yours, from afar, and obviously close up. You being the producer of our our show for a while, seeing you pop in here and there. So,
Well, Jake,
what's up, man?
thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I'm a big fan of your content. And, this is a long time coming. We talked a little bit about this backstage. The last time the Jets and Rams faced off, it was an interesting one. The Jets won the game, but, Jets fans were not upset about winning. We're not happy about winning. Frank Gore, it was a nightmare. But this game coming up, I'm excited to preview with you. And not to mention just your channel, but the NFC West Roundtable has been a joy to watch. So shout out to all the Rams fans that tunes into the NFC West Roundtable. Jake, you hold it down on that show and represent Rams fans well. And shout out to the Jets fans that's tuning in on Jets Media. Go check out my boy Jake's YouTube channel. He's absolutely killing it. Appreciate you having me on, Jake.
Hey, appreciate you. Appreciate all the kind words. Love doing the show, obviously. I appreciate you guys bringing me on. But, man, this is a huge game for the Rams. Not as huge for the Jets, which is interesting here, is they still somehow have a shot at the number one overall pick. It's very, very small, but they do. Kind of similar to 2020. We just talked about that. But I think what's really fascinating about this game is that last year when the Rams went to MetLife, they played the Giants in a very similar setting late in the season, and they needed to beat the Giants to essentially win their division. And they came down to the wire, and a lot of Rams fans said, this is going to be a blowout. It's not going to be close. And I kept saying, I don't know about that. And guess what, Richie? I have the same exact thought about this Jets team. I've been watching, and I think Aaron Rodgers is playing way better than people realize. Clearly Madden, because they have him rated as a 77 overall, which is silly to me. But I just feel like, I know it hasn't gone their way this year. I believe 10 one-possession games, 4-10 on the year. But this is a team that's been in most of their games, and the Rams aren't a team that blows anybody away. They keep teams in it. And to me, when you go on the road and you're playing, first off, you're traveling 3,000 miles away. I can attest to that. But you travel 3,000 miles to go to MetLife, and you have to win this game. And it's in the cold because it's a December game. I don't think it's a gimme, but what say you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a big fan of Sean McVey. I've always have been for years. I feel like his offensive mind and the way that he approaches the head coach position is something I always admired. And, Matthew Stafford is a great veteran quarterback, and I feel like they're definitely going to have a big test because they have to travel across the country, like you mentioned, and in the frigid cold weather. Now, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers and the Jets are playing a little bit better football. Now, yes, they beat the Jaguars, which are a pretty bad football team, but Aaron Rodgers has been playing a little bit better as of late. In the last 7 games, Jake, he has 13 touchdowns to 1 interception, and he's been playing really good, especially in the last 2 games. Now, the last 2 games has been in Florida, very, favorable in terms of weather, sunny. Now it's going to be Aaron Rodgers tested in the cold weather. Now, we've seen Aaron Rodgers throughout his entire career in Green Bay playing cold, and he's been thriving. So I feel like the Jets are playing with pride, and we know that the Jets roster is, talented. It just hasn't been coming together from a coaching standpoint, and you mentioned the one-possession games just never went our way. The Jets just find ways to lose, man. And, I actually have confidence where I feel like the Aaron Rodgers-led team is going to try to go out with a bang. I feel like things are starting to get some, positive momentum on their side. We saw Davante Adams click against the Jaguars. I mean, the second half, it was just lights out. That was just vintage from Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. But then you look at what the LA Rams did to the Buffalo Bills 2 weeks ago, and then you see them win in a completely different way in a short week against, you see the Rams put up 44, and then you see them win without scoring a touchdown. That tells me the Rams can adjust. They don't have to win in just one way. They can win based off how the game presents itself, and that's what makes Sean McVey such a great coach. So, yeah, if I'm a Rams fan, I definitely wouldn't overlook the Jets, but at the same time, the Jets find new ways to lose every single time. We should have easily beat the Dolphins 2 weeks ago, and somehow we just slipped away and lost that game. So that's the one thing I would say. Just look at the Jets, be like, you know what, even if we mess up, they're the Jets, and they're probably going to fumble away. It's going to be a coaching issue or something that's not going to go the Jets' way for you guys to win the game. But I'm excited for the two veteran quarterbacks of Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford to square off in this one.
No, I definitely hear you there. And, it has not been an easy season for the Jets. It wasn't easy back when I covered them for a year.
What year
Zach
was that?
Wilson. It was when Zach Wilson went down with the injury in preseason. Right after, I went on a Spaces with JetCast. I think at the time they were Jets Lounge. I go on a Spaces, and people are asking me, should they follow the Rams procedure and not playing their starters in preseason? And I said, absolutely. Zach Wilson should be nowhere near the field in preseason. And then that happened. I think that derailed that season. I really do. Because I think he was going to have a good year. I really believe that. But obviously, that's neither here nor there. I do feel for you guys. And obviously, the stuff today, we have to bring it up before we get into the preview. You already know where I'm going with this. Woody Johnson.
It's insane.
What
man.
are your thoughts on that? Because I 100% believe it. Like, I don't think it's hearsay or anything. I think it's 100% accurate. Woody Johnson is holding this entire organization back. But what are your thoughts?
The hit pieces just never stop. And that's what happens when you're in New York City, and that's what happens when you have an owner like Woody who's so as polarizing as he is, man. I mean, you see these reports, and I'm just like, there's no way this is true. But then I'm like, it is, because that's who Woody Johnson is. It's just like seeing these things is what drives me nuts as a Jets fan, because it feels like no matter who we bring in this offseason as a GM and head coach, it's like, is Woody Johnson going to be able to step away and let the people that he hires to do their business, or is he going to be hands-on and, infiltrate, right? The Jets are going to trade for Jerry Jeudy. Joe Douglas was about to pull the trigger. And then Woody's like, no, my son said his Madden rating isn't good enough, so actually don't trade for him. I mean, what are we doing here? And then apparently Woody Johnson went out there and, said that, Mike White effing sucks in front of his face after a loss. I mean, this is just what a culture is all about. The culture for the New York Jets is bad because it starts from the ownership, and it's sad because you can't fire the owner. You got to sell the team, and he has no indication of selling the football team. So my hope is that he can get the right people in charge and he can take a step back, because it's absolutely driving me nuts, all the hit pieces. And Jake, as you learn, from your perspective as a Rams fan, I'm just curious the perception of the Jets, because even when the Jets stink like we do this year, we're still headline news everywhere. Like, we can't suck in silence, right? It's because of Aaron Rodgers. It's because of New York market. But, like, you look at the other teams around the league that stink, no one's talking about them. But when the Jets stink, it's just article after article, incompetence. Like, it's just really frustrating. Like, what's the perception of the New York Jets, like, from a Rams fan perspective? Because I'm curious. Are we just a laughing stock? Or do you guys laugh at us? Like, what is it?
Well, I mean, I have a soft spot for the Jets from that year covering them. If I had to pick another team, it would be the Jets. So I can't say that I'm laughing at them, because, I mean, I feel for all you guys. I think the Jets have some of the best fans in football, like, just from my experience. And I would just say this is an underachieving team. It's the reason they're talking about the Jets is probably because of Aaron Rodgers mainly over, say, the Giants, because they're both bad, but the Giants are way worse, and you hear more about the Jets. But also, the Jets have way too much talent to be 4-10. Regardless of what people want to say about the coaching, and I get that. Like, oh, yeah, they're not that talented. Putting in a new coach wouldn't change things. It would. I mean, if you started the season with Mike Vrabel, I think this team is still in the playoff race right now. I do. I do think Aaron Rodgers is very polarizing, but, at the same time, I just think that they've been quietly one of the best defenses in football the last 3 years. And the Giants, it's like, yeah, they have some pieces here and there, but there's nothing about the Giants where you're like, oh, wow, this is scary. I mean, I remember, covering them, and they get Sauce Gardner, who was like my top player in the draft at that point. And I'm like, oh, my God. And people don't even realize how good DJ Reed is. So, like, when those two play together. So I just feel like looking at the Jets, having guys like Quinnen Williams, Hassan Reddick, Will McDonald, the fourth, all this talent, it's like you would expect more. So I think, underachieving gets talked about more than just straight up bad. Like, the Giants have a couple guys, but they're not great by any stretch. They don't have anything like that. So That's how I would look at it. Not they have like guys like Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams. I mean, you look at this roster and they just on paper, and obviously paper doesn't mean anything, but on paper they should be way better than 4-10. I think we can all agree on that.
Exactly. And I think the big thing that Jets fans have realized is that we have a roster, not a team. And I think that's the biggest thing, man. You can have a group of players that are not as talented, but they play together. They have a sense of belief in one another. They have a coaching staff that can present a game plan, and the players go out and execute it. And I feel like that's what the Jets are lacking, right? They can Robert Saleh. So there's no coaching on this team. I mean, Jeff Ulbrich is just not a head coach in this league.
No.
And the players, I feel like, just like gave up midway through the season. I'm watching the sidelines. It's just a lack of. Right when Devontae Adams came here in his first game as a Jet on that Sunday Night Football game against Pittsburgh, he had to speak and to the team. He's like, "Hey, I just got here, and I know it's maybe not my place to speak, but there's something wrong with this team." And I honestly value Devontae Adams' opinion because it's an outsider coming in, realizing that nobody is firing each other up. There's no energy on the sideline. And that just tells me a lot that this team is not a team that plays together. It's just a collection of players that are super talented, that don't have a sense of belief and a scheme that's executing at a high level. And that's the unfortunate thing in that. So the big question this offseason for us is who's the GM, who's the head coach, and will Aaron Rodgers return or not? And that's where we're waiting to see. And I think that they are really trying to finish on a high note, starting with the Rams team, this Rams team that is fighting to win the NFC West. And it's going to be a really big test for the Jets after coming off a win against a bad Jacksonville Jaguars team. Because if the Jets can upset the Rams at home, and then they have to go into Buffalo and hypothetically somehow pull off an AFC East rival upset, then Jets fans are going to be like, all right, let's run it back with Aaron and bring in Mike Vrabel or somebody. Let's do this thing. We're going to be a delusional all over again, Jake.
No, I get it, man. I get it. I'll say this. I think Vrabel would be a good hire. I do. And I think that you guys are going to end up getting Dimitroff at GM. And this is a guy that's won a lot of games with the Falcons. Would have a Super Bowl if not for Kyle Shanahan. So, I think that'd be a home run hire. I would also look at Ray Agnew, who was with the Rams for a while. He's the assistant general manager with the Lions. I think that would be another really good hire. Could bring in Ben Johnson, or Ben Johnson could bring in Ray Agnew. I think that's kind of the direction that I would probably go in, one of those two. But, yeah, I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. I think with the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, before we dive into, kind of the breakdown of this game, just real quick, Aaron Rodgers, from what I know now, is if they keep him on the roster and say he's removed, after for whatever, at any point next year, they're going to owe him, or at least the cap is going to be, there's going to be a massive hit in 2026. And that's the concern I have for the Jets about keeping him. But at the same time, it's you already have all your eggs in that basket. It's it's hard to, it's not a great spot to be in.
It's not. And the good thing is, I don't want to hold out too much hope. Aaron Rodgers took a pay cut when he first came here, and he was asked yesterday if he'd be open to take another pay cut or restructure his contract to help the Jets, and he said he's open to it. That's the only thing I'm holding out hope for. Aaron feels like he owes the Jets something. He came here and sold us a false good of hope of, going to the Super Bowl. We weren't even talking about making the playoffs. It was Super Bowl. And that's where Jets fans were listening to. And he obviously came here, got injured in year one, year two, coming off the Achilles, 4-10. So if Aaron really wants to win this team over and help this team out in the long term, it'd take another pay cut. And he said he's open to it. There's no guarantee that actually happens. But it's definitely interesting to hear that. And the question is, the GM they bring in, is he going to want Aaron Rodgers? And they're going to go to Aaron and be like, hey, man, your cap hit in 2026 is ridiculous. If we bring you back, could you maybe cut some of it? I mean, he took the largest pay cut in history. $35 million he took off his contract when he first came here. So I'm hopeful if the Jets bring Aaron back, he does that all over again to help us out.
Hey, I hear you, man. Well, hey, obviously I'm rooting for you in that regard. Not this weekend, though.
You're playing for something, Jake.
Yeah. Hey,
must be nice.
It is. It definitely is. But I think it's also a reminder. And yesterday, I was on a Spaces, and someone mentioned Cliff Kingsbury. And I said, second half of the season, Kingsbury shuts down. And when you look at why the Rams are the way they are the last 2 years, why they're 8-6 now after starting 1-4, why they made the playoffs at 10-7 last year after starting 3-6, the reason is because coaching matters, but in the second half of the year, that is when it really gets like whittled down to, do you have a good coach or do you not? And you're not winning these games, especially not a game where you have to travel 3,000 miles to play on the road in the cold in December. You're not winning these games with just an NPC, a head coach, right? So that's the thing with Sean McVay, is he gives you a chance to win those. And, of course, a guy like Cliff Kingsbury loses those games almost 100 out of 100 times. But looking at the way the Rams are from a Jets fan perspective, what have been your thoughts just kind of from afar on this team? Because, like I said, it's no shock. Everybody knows, they started 1-4. They had a lot of injuries. They were actually leading the league in injuries, and now the Lions have just completely taken that away. But they were leading the league in injuries, start 1-4. Now they're 8-6. They've won, 7 of the last 9. I mean, what are your thoughts on this team, as the season has progressed?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the Rams from afar. I always have been, like I said at the top of the show, on the daily show that I do with TD Finstock and Dan Mitchell, The Huddle, we talk the entire NFL, and I actually said, I think yesterday or some point this week, that like if there was a sleeper team to go on a run in the playoffs, I picked the Rams because they are one of the only teams right now active that has a ring with the same active coach and the same active quarterback. Besides Andy Reid and Mahomes, there's nobody out there that's active right now that has a championship, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Jalen Hurts and Sirianni lost. There's nobody really out there. Tom Brady's not here anymore. They have experience, and they know how to play when it matters the most. And it's not about how you start. It's about how you finish. And I was holding out hope that was the case with the Jets, where we started off the season slow, and then Aaron Rodgers gets Devontae, and maybe we can go on a run in the second half and squeak into the playoffs red hot. Wrong. Didn't happen for us. But for the Rams, they have something that is really important, which is a coaching staff and an offense and a sense of belief, and also just getting the most out of the players that really like a casual NFL fan doesn't really know too much about. And I feel like that's important. It's not – the Rams used to be like star-studded, right? Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, the team where you guys won the Super Bowl. And now they had a completely shift of culture, right? Sean McVay had to figure out a way to okay, we haven't had a first-round pick in so long. They have to hit on the drafts, the picks recently, and I feel like they have. Kobe Turner's a stud, and the guys across your roster. I feel like your secondary is an issue, but Jared Verse is a beast off the edge, what I feel like is a guy that's really able to neutralize that defensively. So I feel like Matthew Stafford, to go along with Puka, to go along with Cooper Kupp, and, Williams, your offensive line, and also showing that you can win in multiple ways, right? You don't need to win in just shootouts. You can win in a defensive game. And I feel like people are overlooking that win you guys had against San Francisco on Thursday night. The way you won that football game was defense. And the Rams are looked at from the outside like, oh, their defense stinks. The secondary's trash. Well, you didn't give up a touchdown. You didn't score a touchdown your own, and you still won the football game. So, they're opportunistic. They're experienced. And I think, teams you got to look after in the playoffs are the ones that have the most experience in the playoffs, and the Rams have that, right? They have the most playoffs experience in the entire NFC conference, right? So I think that, if you guys can win the NFC West, which I think you guys are going to do, it's going to be a really interesting situation to see who you match up with as that 5th seed, or maybe you get the 3rd seed. I'm curious to see how the NFC conference shapes up. And, NFC West isn't yours yet. As you know, the division is very competitive. Seattle has something to say about it with Geno's injury. We'll see how he goes. 49ers plummeted. The Cardinals plummeted. I think it's really between you and the Seahawks, but if I had to predict, it's probably going to be the Rams coming out on top.
Yeah, well, I think the wacky thing about this whole thing is that the Cardinals are essentially right there. Like, that game next week against the Cardinals on Saturday Night Football could decide the division, and I don't think anybody would have thought that, 2 weeks ago. But, hey, that's the league. The Rams definitely have to get this win. I like a lot of what you said, and I love that you brought up guys like Kobe Turner because, that's a good sign to me that he's becoming something here, actually getting talked about. I do, and I mean, I might be biased, but I do think he was snubbed last year for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I know Will Anderson's great, but I just felt like last year Kobe absolutely should have won that. And, this year he's showing up. But I think when you look at this game, Sean McVay, I don't believe has lost at MetLife Stadium. I think he's won every single game, beat the Giants 51-17. Wow. I mean, yeah, that I remember that like that was yesterday. It was pouring rain. There were a bunch of custom Darnold Giants jerseys in the crowd. That's where we were in that one. And
Custom, was that before the draft?
That was before the draft. And
wow.
And Robert Woods on 3rd and 33. This is how you knew it was just like your day. On 3rd and 33, there's a bubble screen to Robert Woods, and he takes it like 60 yards for a touchdown. And it's just like anything they wanted, they got. And that game in particular was so fascinating because Jared Goff, who, I mean, I wanted Carson Wentz, so I kind of understood the narrative of, oh, yeah, Jared Goff, small hands, going to struggle in the cold weather. And I'm watching him toss 5 touchdowns, and I'm like, about that. But yeah, no, the last time the Jets played the Rams at MetLife, Sean McVay was not the head coach. It was Jeff Fisher. It was his last win as a Ram. 9-6, Bryce Petty versus Case Keenum.
Oh, gosh.
No, it was
way.
awful. I was
Bryce
there, and I
Petty.
remember the best play was when Jalen Marshall was lined up, and my father and I are looking at him, and we're like, he's not back far enough. And Johnny Hecker boots one, and you see Jalen Marshall running 30 yards backwards. That was the play of the game. That goes to show you how bad that game was. But,
oh, man, that's some trauma you just triggered there with Bryce Petty. Wow.
It's it's wild. But hey, the last time these two played, it was 23-20. The Jets dominated the entire game. The Rams came back, and they were not able to win it because John Franklin Myers, who the Rams never should have given up on, made a huge play.
The Jets just gave up on him, made the same mistake. He's thriving in Denver.
Everywhere he goes, man. I don't know, but yeah. So looking at this game, I've heard from Jets fans, at least like on my feed and whatnot, that they can't stop the run. Although the last 3 games, they're only giving up 88 yards on the ground on average. So that's not bad at all. Mm-hmm. But I think in this one, the thing about the Jets that scares me, Breece Hall is going to play, it looks like, right? He's back.
Yeah.
And I think he's a guy that has he has that explosive ability, and the Rams give up a lot of explosive plays on the ground, through the air, which could also hurt them with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. And I feel like if you keep it on the ground and you have success, and the Rams have stopped a lot of running backs, but they've also gotten gashed by Alvin Kamara. They got gashed by Saquon Barkley. I think Breece Hall could be huge in this game. And if the Rams can't stop him, that will open up the play-action attack for Aaron Rodgers. And you mentioned the secondary has its issues. Well, now I have Aaron Rodgers with play-action, with a ground game that's working, and I'm throwing to Devontae Adams. I'm throwing to Garrett Wilson. I got Alan Lazard down the field somewhere. Tyler Conklin, who's a good tight end. That's a problem. But what say you on that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Breece Hall has been a disappointment in my brains just because of the expectation that I had for him this season. He's a good back. I had him in great back territory heading into the season, and I feel like this could be a game where he can finally get unlocked. I feel like Breece has been more of a weapon in the pass game where Rodgers dumps it down underneath and then Breece can get some space. For whatever reason, the ground game just hasn't worked this year for the Jets, whether it's like the run scheme, the run blocking, the running backs not finding the holes, the vision, ball security, whatever the case may be. So maybe this could be the Breece Hall game. Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis has been playing pretty well behind him, the 2 rookies. I've been very impressed with Isaiah Davis. I feel like he's been a guy where he's been slept on. Braylon Allen stole the show in terms of the rookie, and then Isaiah Davis came in as the number 2 when Breece was hurt. He's back-to-back touchdowns, right? I mean, against the Dolphins, Davis had a touchdown. Against the Jaguars, Davis had a touchdown. So watch out for Isaiah Davis. He's kind of that pesky, pass-catching back, has good hands. A really interesting matchup I'm looking after in this game. If there's one thing that Jets fans are really excited about with this Jets football team, and I'm really excited about this specific matchup for him in this game, it's our first-round pick, Olu Fashanu, at left tackle, going up against fellow rookie Jared Verse. That's going to be a really fun matchup. Fashanu has been an absolute stud, at left tackle since he took over for Tyron Smith. And the offensive line has been phenomenal for the Jets these past few weeks, which is why Aaron Rodgers has been playing his best brand of football. He's been keeping upright. Rodgers was hurt midway through the season with the hamstring and all these things because he was getting gashed, and now he's getting protected. And Olu is a big reason for it. He went up against Josh Allen, the Jaguars edge rusher, whatever his new name is. I always forget. Hines Allen or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Olu buried him, and he's a really good pass rusher, and Jared Verse is also a rising pass rusher, so I'm excited for that matchup because if there's one silver lining in the season, maybe the Jets have found their franchise left tackle, something that the Jets have been looking for a while after drafting Mekhi Becton. Didn't work out for us at all. Now he's thriving in Philadelphia, of course. Whatever Jet comes here and they go somewhere else, they thrive. It's how it works here. So I'm excited for that matchup, Olu versus Jared Verse. And I feel like Aaron Rodgers has something to prove. And if we can establish a run game to set up that play action and see what Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson is doing, because whoever you double team, I mean, it's similar with the Rams. They got a really good 1-2 punch in through the air with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I mean, pick your poison. You double team Puka, Cooper Kupp one-on-one, he's going to get open 10 out of 10 times. Same thing with the Jets here with Devontae and Garrett Wilson. And we're seeing Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers get back in sync. And we all knew what they looked like. I mean, through their career in Green Bay. When Rodgers and Devontae Adams is on the same page, it is one of the lethal combinations the NFL world has ever seen. They're fourth all-time in touchdowns in terms of quarterback and wide receiver duo, and it feels like they found that again, and watch out for Aaron Rodgers to keep feeding Devontae and Garrett Wilson. So I think that the Jets are going to be scoring a lot of points in this game. My concern is the defense for the Jets against the Rams offense. I think this is going to be more of a shootout, if anything. I think the Jets offense is finally getting into the rhythm, and their defense, they have a lot of injuries. Quinnen Williams all of a sudden has a hamstring issue. DJ Reed is still out, I believe. There's a lot of injuries on our defense, and our defense simply has not lived up to the expectations at all. The reason why the Jets were good the last 2 years was our defense, and the defense fell apart, especially in the clutch. So I expect this to be more of an offensive shootout type of game. I think both teams are on pace to get like 25-plus points.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I have a 31-24. I don't know. Would you call that a shootout?
Yeah, for Jets standards. I mean, the Jets hasn't really been in shootouts. I mean, the Rams shootout standard is 44-42. So maybe it's not a shootout from the Rams' perspective, but from our Jets, we scored 30 points for the first time last week, Jake. And for us, it's like, we got 30! Oh, God, look at that. 30 points. It's like a miracle. You guys are out here getting 44. So maybe it's not a shootout from your perspective, but from ours, 31-24, it's a shootout.
Yeah, no, I hear that. But to be fair, that 44 came out of nowhere. I mean, I had never seen that 44, not with this team this year, That
True.
just... I don't know. The Bills bring out the most in a lot of these teams, I guess. But it is really interesting because, again, I feel like a lot of Rams fans just feel like this is going to be a blowout. And, again, Sean McVey takes the foot off the gas pedal. He doesn't blow teams out. I think this is going to be a one-possession game. I think this is going to be very reminiscent to last year against the Giants, the 26-25 game, where at one point I think the Jets might actually take control of this game. And the Rams will have to kind of wrestle it back in their favor, and I think they will do that. This is a must-win game. I know that there is a pathway to beating the Cardinals, beating Seattle, and winning the division off that. But it's also, it kind of sends a bad message, too. I mean, to lose this game, this would be the first time all year that the Rams have won 4 straight. They've won 4 straight on the road, but they haven't won 4 straight games. And so I think this would be kind of a statement made. I don't even think they did that last year. So it's a big deal. I think they have to get this done, and I think that they know that. I'm looking for a heavy dose of Kyren Williams early on. I think they're going to try to establish the run, and then, in the play action game, you're going to get Matthew Stafford going, probably some rollouts. I think we're going to see a decent amount. I'm not going to lie. I think we're going to see a decent amount of Tyler Higbee in this one, who's coming back after suffering the ACL and MCL tear in the playoffs. Has not played all year. But the last time Higbee played against the Jets, which was 2020, he was their leading receiver in that game. One of the only remaining pieces from that team next time they played the Jets. But I just have this feeling, this year the tight ends just haven't really done a lot for the Rams. Not a lot of breaking tackles, not a lot of yards after the catch. And I just have this feeling Higbee's been healthy for 2 weeks, and they've been kind of easing him into this. I think they're going to let him go in this one, and I think that'll be a key. But in addition to that, let's be honest here. You mentioned his name. He is as dangerous as anybody in the league. It's Puka Nacua. He can do it all. He can make any catch, pirouetting down, the sideline. He's made catches I didn't even think were possible. He's made catches that a video game couldn't actually replicate. The animation. It's pretty crazy. But then it's not just that. It's his ability as a blocker. He's basically a tight end. So he turns your 11 personnel into a 12 personnel, essentially, because he can be that tight end when you motion him in. And in addition to that, just what he does after the catch, he's hard to bring down. So I think you look at this game, and I think it comes down to making, being able to maximize every, opportunity. And the yards after the catch, I think, is going to be really key and critical, because I do think the Jets have a lot of athleticism in that linebacker room. I do. And I think it's going to be tough because, you have Sauce Gardner, you have DJ Reed. They might have to take the short stuff and make, long stuff out of it. So that's kind of how I see that. And then on the Jets side, I just think if Aaron Rodgers can move a little bit, this team, with those improv type of quarterbacks, it could be a tough time with a young secondary. So I think that's what they have to do. But we'll see. You are getting, and this is your luck, you are getting the healthiest Rams team of the entire season. They have never been this healthy. They have every single starter back.
And you know what you're getting? The hottest we've ever seen of Aaron Rodgers, Jake. How about that? 45 rushing yards. Exactly. We're coming off, baby. And that's the thing about you mentioned Rodgers improv. We saw it week 3 against the Patriots. Rodgers was moving around, and I'm like, we just blew out the Patriots. We're 2-1. This is it, baby. This is why we're AFC East favorites, because we were heading into the season.
Yeah.
And then it all fell apart. Next week, Rodgers gets hurt, has a hamstring calf, becomes more of a pocket passer, and now he's on the injury report all year. Now he's finally off the injury report these last few weeks, and he's moving around, extending plays, picking up the first down with his legs, rolling to his right, rolling to his left. That's what makes Aaron Rodgers dangerous, like you mentioned. So that's something I'm looking forward to. Can he do that against, a good team in the cold weather at MetLife Stadium like he did in Green Bay? Another matchup, you mentioned his name, and I'm looking forward to this, is Sauce Gardner, because Sauce has been relatively a disappointment for his standards this season. The bar is so high for Sauce. He wins Rookie of the Year, year 1, first team All-Pro, year 2, first team All-Pro. Year 3, he's not going to get All-Pro honors this year. He's been disappointing for his own standards. He's coming off getting the game-winning interception, and now he has a chance to go up against Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And I'm looking at Sauce in this one because he really needs to get his confidence back and his swagger back. And I feel like this is a great opportunity to do that against, a really rising star wide receiver in Puka Nacua and an established vet in Cooper Kupp. And I'm really excited about that one. The Jets' issues on defense has been tackling. It seems like we get the stop and then we just miss a tackle, and whoever has the ball just breaks free and picks up the first down. It's like, oh my God. Or it's just a back-breaking penalty. It just feels like we, are the reasons why we keep losing. So I'm excited for the Sauce Gardner matchup, and I'm excited to see if Aaron Rodgers can still move around the pocket as well as we saw against the Jaguars. I mean, his ability to escape pressure and scramble and do those play-action bootlegs and still stretch the ball down the field has been impressive as of late. But the question is, can he do it down the stretch? And the one thing that I feel like is in favor of the Rams is something that the Jets have used to be dynamic, used to be their strength of the team, but it's fell apart. It's pass rush. Will McDonald has 10-plus sacks this season, but outside of him, there's no pass rush whatsoever. We didn't touch Tua 2 weeks ago. We barely got to Mac Jones last week, and Matthew Stafford may have all day to throw the football. And if you give Matthew Stafford time with Puka and Cooper Kupp and Calvin Higbee coming back and Kyron Williams to dump the ball to, it's going to be a long day for the Jets. So I'm excited to see how it matches up. Jalen Mills, our starting safety, he's out. He broke his collarbone. Chuck Clark pretty much stinks. I mean, our secondary outside of Sauce and DJ Reed has been up and down. So that's really the matchups I would look after in this game.
Yeah, I like that. And, combined between DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, they've only given up 2 touchdowns. So I do think it kind of takes that away where, the Rams are definitely going to try the screen game, which got very active
Our
in the Bills
kryptonite.
game. Yeah. Well,
That's
there
what
you
suck.
go.
We cannot defend the screen for our lives. I mean, it's been that way since Saleh came here.
They are definitely going to hit you with the screen game. Bubble screens. They don't really use slip screens to the running back very often. I assume that's what you meant, right? Or
Yeah.
you're just saying any screen in general.
Any screen, it's just because we're such an attacking front. We just get to the quarterback. So opposing offenses love to just suck our defensive line and our whole defense in and then just dump it down to a slip screen or even just a bubble swing screen. And we also are not as good at tackling. So what offenses have been doing is they force the Jets defensive line because they're such a violent attacking front to come in and then force our secondary to tackle, which we've struggled with. So it's instead of forcing our guys to cover, which we're good at, right? We're really good at coverage down the field. We're not good at tackling. So opposing offenses have just been dumping it off to the receiver in a screen and forcing our secondary, our corners, and our linebackers to tackle, which we've been struggling all year long. So that's really the big issue with the defense this season.
And then you have Chuck Clark, and I honestly think this is an opportunity for the Rams to try something with Tutu Atwell in this one because you have Chuck Clark that's given up 4 touchdowns this year, and I think if you get him in that position deep downfield, where there's a coverage bust, Tutu Atwell is the fastest guy potentially on the field on Sunday. He won't play very often. I don't know why. He just doesn't really get an opportunity. But this is a guy that is very explosive and is kind of their super poor man's Tyreek Hill, probably more leaning towards Marquise Hollywood Brown. He's that level of player, just doesn't get the opportunities. I could see them definitely going deep down the field, but I think the big thing about the Rams going into this game is, while I said they're fully healthy, they have now had 3 games, 3 games with a fully healthy offensive line. And we've seen that. Stafford has not been sacked. And I think it's really you're starting to see this offense get into their own element. Having the 10 days off is going to be huge. That mini bye week, you can't, take that for granted. I am a little annoyed that they're going cross country here late in the season. They only play the Jets when it's cold out. No idea why. They only play the Giants when it's cold out at MetLife. No idea why. But then they got a short week, Saturday Night Football against the Cardinals. So I don't love that. Although the Cardinals are also going across the country to play in Carolina. So there is that. But it should be very interesting. I think, as far as next year goes, I do think the Jets could do something next year. It all depends on who they hire. It's going to depend on, who they draft, what happens with that first round pick. But I definitely think it'll be interesting for sure. And, I understand, the situation that they're in right now with Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers, keep in mind, is a big reason why I think the Jets have a shot in this game. And he's got a lot of respect for Matthew Stafford, but he's a competitor. If anybody thinks he's going to lay down and look bad in front of his peer, that's not going to happen. I think we're going to get a Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers kind of duel. Stafford wins 31-24, but I think it should be a fun game. I think, to your point, though, that the lack of pass rush, if they can't get to the Rams, that's how this goes from a 31-24 ball game to potentially a blowout. Because if the defense is on the field the whole time, which is what the Rams want to do, they want to bleed the clock, they want to suck the soul out of your defense. If they're having 15, 17 play drives like they did against the Bills, like they did at the end of the 49er game, it's not going to be pretty.
In the first half against the Jaguars, that's exactly what the Jaguars did to us. We didn't touch the ball in the first half. I mean, it was just, we're talking about the Jaguars with Mac Jones. They would run the ball in first down, a little dump off on second down, and then it'll be third and short, and they would pick it up every single time. And they would just march down the field methodically, and the time of possession was ridiculous. I mean, the Jets won the game, but the Jaguars beat us in total plays, time of possession, yards, everything. but the Jets were just able to be opportunistic in the second half. And knowing that's the Rams' philosophy, and that drives me nuts. As a Jets fan, there's nothing worse, Jake, when I'm watching the games and I'm like, I want to watch Aaron. Like, why can't I just watch the offense? All I'm seeing is this defense get gashed and they're tired and the defense getting worn down. And I'm like, I want to see Aaron and this offense go out there and give them chances. And it started week 1, honestly, against the 49ers. They just ran the ball, and the Jets started off strong offensively. And then even without McCaffrey, and I should have just known there, I'm like, yeah, this is what the season's going to be. This Jets defense just can't get a stop on third down. We are one of the worst teams on defense on third down. So I feel like that's something that opposing offenses has done. They just like eat away. They get third and short opportunities, and they execute on third downs. And the Jets are the opposite, man. They can't get a stop on third down, and it feels like we, bite ourselves a lot where we give ourselves on offense third and long opportunities, and we just don't execute. But watch out for a lot of trick plays for the Jets. We did a fake punt, which I thought was pretty cool. We're playing with house money. We're playing like there's nothing to lose here for the Jets. So I feel like they're going to be aggressive. They're going to go for on fourth down more than we've seen. And I feel like execution in the red zone is something to watch out for the Jets. That's where we've really struggled the most as an offense. We move the ball well. We get all the way down to the red zone just to fail and, settle for 3 or go for it and not get it. And I feel like that's been a big issue where you saw Garrett Wilson had a feud on the sidelines last week. That was the reason for it. He wanted the fade in the red zone. He's like, we suck in the red zone. Like, throw the fade or something. And that's where they made the adjustments in the second half, and the Jets actually were able to execute. So the red zone efficiency on offense for the Jets is a bad look. So hopefully it can be a classic game between 2 veteran quarterbacks that I think are, I respect Matthew Stafford a lot, and I'm excited to see what he looks like at the back end of the season. I do have a question for you, though, regarding your Rams, if you don't mind, that has something to do with the Jets. Mike LaFleur, is he doing anything positive, or is it all like the Sean McVey show, right? Because Sean McVey is the head coach. He's the offensive brains. When Mike LaFleur got fired by the Jets, and then you guys hired him, he's your offensive coordinator. What's his role, and do you feel like he has any positive impact, or is he just like there? You know what I mean? Like usually, the Andy Reid offensive coordinator doesn't really get a lot of love because it's Andy Reid show. Is that the same thing with Sean McVey and Mike LaFleur behind him?
I was told he has more of a role than offensive coordinators in the past. Now, I don't know if that's more than Kevin O'Connell, because I'll tell you right now, that's when their offense was the best, and you knew when Kevin O'Connell left, that was going to hurt. He doesn't call the plays, obviously, but he definitely has, a bigger hold on this offensive playbook, and this is a guy that's well-respected, very well-respected, by this organization. Stafford has a good rapport with him. A lot of the players do. I think he's got a chance to be a head coach. I'm not going to say it happens this year, but I think he's going to be taking interviews soon. And I also think Shula, the defensive coordinator, rookie defensive coordinator, I think he'll be taking interviews soon. So, we'll see what ends up happening. My prediction was always that, Mike LaFleur would find himself as a head coach at some point. I think he's a really good communicator. Just you're watching the pressers and you're like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. This guy knows what he's doing. And I've only heard great things about him. So, I don't know necessarily, why that didn't work out with the Jets. Sometimes things just don't work out. I could tell you, like, for instance, Raheem Morris, who's now a head coach again, with the Falcons, worked out well with the Rams. But, a lot of people forget, he was like the first, and I don't remember the exact stat, he was the first head coach since like the 70s to win 10 games with an entirely new starting 11 on one side of the ball. And then he got fired because they had a bad year the next year after they fired everybody in the front office. So, yeah, I just kind of feel like that's how things work. In this league, you'll find guys that just have better fits. Dan Quinn looks like he has a really good fit with the Commanders. I'm not saying that Mike LaFleur, is blameless, because I think the Jets with Zach Wilson should have worked. Like, something happened where it didn't work. That could have been Mike LaFleur. That could have been Saleh. That could have been Woody Johnson. I don't know if we'll ever know. But we just know the result. It didn't work, and it should have.
It's funny because when we brought up Mike LaFleur, Jets fans were like, oh, but what are we going to do in 2 years when he's a head coach? That was our big concern, right? And now he's fired, and now he's thriving with the Rams, and now you are saying the same thing we said. I mean, but the difference is the Rams actually have had coordinators become head coaches, so you guys actually have a reason to believe that's a possibility under Sean McVay. And the big thing I learned about this Jets team, man, and it's just obvious. I mean, every NFL fan knows this, but it's just so obvious with my team. Coaching matters like so much, and it's just so obvious how much the Jets are lacking coaching. And it's just like every week you see it, and lack of preparation, and it just feels like Rodgers is out there and the coach on the field, and there's just so much that he needs to worry about. And it's so much. I mean, Matthew Stafford gets to go out there, and he has Sean McVay to lean on. Like, it's not this Matthew Stafford show. It's the McVay and Stafford show. And Rodgers is depending on Hackett and Todd Downing. I mean, like, that's the big issue, and that's why I admire the Rams so much. They're so well coached, and it's really admirable to watch. I really felt like he could be the guy, and it's not been the case. And now I'm just hopeful that whoever we bring in is the guy for the next 5. I'm sick of the same story every 3 to 4 years, Jake, of going into these searches. I started my content creation career when we hired Adam Gase. Oh, God, I hated that era. Never wanted him in the first place. And my first actual video on my channel was the timeline of success for Joe Douglas. And I was so bought into Joe Douglas. I felt like his vision was clear. And now here we are, he's gone. And now we're bringing in a brand new GM. So, I admire the Rams organization. They're an organization I feel like that proves that they took a lot of risks in order to go all in. And it was worth it because you guys won the whole thing. And I felt like when the Jets brought in Aaron Rodgers, I brought up the Rams as an example. Look, they brought in Matthew Stafford, a veteran quarterback, and they won the whole thing right away. The Jets can do that with Aaron. And I was wrong, as usual, because the Jets just feel like there's a stank in this team, man, that just never is going to leave. And hopefully the new GM and the new head coach can kind of wipe that old mold.
I feel like I hit the lottery, man, because, throughout, I mean, it would have been nice to have this back when I was in high school and everybody was dunking on me for being a Rams fan. It's like, oh, yeah, you guys got Jeff Fisher. I'm like, why are you excited? Why? Why is that a good thing? I didn't like the Jeff Fisher hire. I wanted Todd Bowles. Not saying Todd Bowles would have been better, but
was that when the Jets fired him or before the Jets got him?
Before the Jets got him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. He was the defense coordinator for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And I wanted Todd Bowles because I wanted something new. I just felt like Jeff Fisher was like doing the same thing over and over again. Like Scott Linehan, what's his face? Chiefs defensive coordinator, Spags. I just felt like going out and getting Jeff Fisher, you're just trying to like stabilize being like a mid-team. And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. But it's funny because I'll never forget this. I don't even know how I found it. I was looking for head coaching guys to replace Jeff Fisher, I think back in October or November. He hadn't been fired yet. And I was on YouTube, and it recommended me the Washington Redskins offensive coordinator, Sean McVay, presser. No idea why. To this day, I don't know. And I watched it because I was like, offensive coordinator, yeah, Kirk Cousins. I don't think he's very good, and he turned him into something, so let's see what he has to say. I was blown away, Richie. Blown away. I could not believe what I was hearing. I was like, Sean McVay sounds like the head coach. Jay Gruden does not sound like the head coach. How is this possible? I was like, there's no way Washington is going to keep Jay Gruden and let Sean McVay go. And then things started like getting real, like, Fisher might actually get fired. And I was like, oh, you got to get Sean McVay. And I kept reading, more and more about him. And this whole, it's early. He's not going to be the head coach in maybe 2 to 3 years. And it was funny. I was just at a live podcast in LA for the Rams-Eagles game. I went out there, and Marshall Faulk was on. And I mean, I've talked to Marshall before about this, but he said the story he always brings up. Stan Kroenke, the owner, asked Marshall Faulk to come and kind of scout this young coaching candidate. They go out to dinner, and Marshall Faulk, basically grills Sean McVay, and they're talking ball and whatnot. And he asks Marshall afterwards, what'd you think? And he's like, well, he's not ready, but The problem is you're going to have to hire him now because when he is ready, he's not going to be there. And so they hired him. And I think the big thing with Sean McVey is that he indicated early on that he was mature beyond his years. By not hiring his best friend, he hired a couple of his guys. Chris Shula's been around since his hiring and everything. But he hired Wade Phillips as his defensive coordinator. And that told me right away, I don't know everything. I want to make sure, Wade, I'm going to hire Greg Olson, who is a veteran coach in this league. I want guys to keep me on the right path because I don't know everything. And I think that's why McVay succeeded so quickly. And just the reputation of McVay around the league, it's why a guy like Andrew Whitworth, who is nearing the end of his career at that point, little did we know he played for years after that, but he's nearing the end of his career. He doesn't re-sign with the Bengals. He goes to the Rams, who were 4-12 the year prior. Like, why is he going there? Sean McVay. And Robert Woods, same thing. And, you got these guys to buy in, and they go from a laughingstock. And, I mean, really, the Rams are arguably one of the worst NFL teams from 2007 to 2015, 2014. And they turned that around after the first year moving back to LA. Everybody's so excited, and they are just terrible. Nothing goes their way. And then they do that. And so I tell you this because it is a reminder, you find your guy, and all of a sudden, I bring this up all the time. Sean McVay has had more wins. Actually, this is how I'll word this. You have to take 2003 all the way up until 2016 to have almost as many wins as Sean McVay has had from 2017 to now.
Wow.
He's already the all-time winning Rams head coach. He was hired in 2017.
Already? That's a great story.
Yeah. So it is a reminder. And look, the Bills went through the same thing.
Yeah.
And they go out and they get Sean McDermott, who's not the sexiest name. But do you know why these guys are succeeding? Sean McDermott, Sean McVay, Mike Tomlin. It's culture.
Yeah.
And everyone focuses on, well, let's be honest here. If we just get a quarterback whisperer, we're good. No. Get a guy that knows what he's doing. Get a guy who is a culture builder and a culture changer. Because that guy, I don't care if he's on the special team side of the ball, a la John Harbaugh, or he's an offensive guru like Sean McVay, or he's a defensive guru like Sean McDermott. Those guys know who to hire.
Yeah.
And they know, because I'll tell you right now, the 49ers, they've been, great for the last, 3-4 years, whatever. But Kyle Shanahan has not built a culture. And that is the reason they haven't won the Super Bowl. You can get to the Super Bowl off talent. You can't win the Super Bowl with just talent. So I think for Jets fans listening,
who do you think the guy is that the Jets should get with
I
all
think
that
it's
thing?
Vrabel, man.
Yeah.
I think he was done so dirty in Tennessee. He should have been hired before the season started. But I think Vrabel is the obvious fit because Vrabel is well connected around the league. You have to go out and get him because the Raiders have Tom Brady. And Tom Brady is going to be, clamoring to get his buddy. But if you get Vrabel, well-liked around the league, a lot of connections, he's going to hire the right guys. They're never going to play piss-poor football. And, I just think what it really comes down to is he is going to make sure that those fundamental things that the Jets are lacking, they never beat you. And that's, I think, the big thing. So I think Vrabel is a special coach. And I think sometimes coaches that are really good, they just get bad. They get into a bad situation and they can be fired. And, I think that's what happened with Dan Quinn. I think the Falcons had the right guy. They lost the Super Bowl. Things went south, and they felt like they needed to fire him. But, I think with I think with Mike Vrabel, I think that's the guy that he steps in day one and you feel good about him because he's in your face, rah, smash mouth. And the league is kind of going back to that if you haven't noticed. I mean, a lot of teams are getting penalized defenses because they're sacrificing the beef up front in the linebacker room for more athletic guys. And because of that, now you're seeing more power running games across the league. You're seeing with Derrick Henry. You're just seeing more ground and pound. And I just think in this era, I actually think Mike Vrabel is a really good fit. And then at that point, what do you do with Aaron Rodgers? I think he kind of works either way. He works with Rodgers. He could bring in an offensive coordinator. Is that from college? Is that, a quarterback coach somewhere that's waiting? I don't know who it is, but I think Vrabel would get it done. Now, would he win a Super Bowl? I don't know, but I think he could. If you had the right pieces, he builds the right culture, like I think he could, then yeah. But I think Dimitroff and Vrabel tells me that this team isn't trying to go through a long-ass rebuild, and they're really trying to compete right away.
Exactly.
But if they go with Ray Agnew as the GM and Ben Johnson, they're trying to catch lightning. They're trying to find a Sean McVey. They're trying to find McDaniel over in Miami. They're trying to find somebody like that. And I don't have any issue with that, but I think those are the two best choices. If I had to pick a third one, I don't know if I could. I think those are the only two guys that I would hire, if I'm being honest with you.
The quality coach, the first thing I want from a Jets perspective is experience. I don't know if I want to go with the risk of a first-year guy. Like you said, this team isn't we don't need to rebuild. I use the tool retool. Because I feel like this roster has talent. It just needs leadership. And that's why Mike Vrabel is the guy. I mean, you can't ask for a more perfect person who has experience, brought Ryan Tannehill to the AFC Championship game, has a smash mouth mindset. Shout out to Flick Shorts, Richie, Jets winning. Wow, he's a Dolphins fan, man. That's shocking. He thinks we're going to win this game. Shout out to Flicks, man. Appreciate the dono. And we got another dono.
Greenies. Appreciate you for the 10 here. What's up, fellas? Ram Nation, we got. MetLife Stadium, here we come. Are you going to be there? I will. Richie will.
I won't be.
Yeah, no, I meant Greenies, but...
I wonder if Rams fans are going to take over the stadium.
I don't know. But I'll tell you right now, when it comes to New York, there are more Rams fans than you could imagine. And what always happens, because they've been good since Sean McVey took over, I always have somebody... accuse me of being a bandwagon fan. I was like,
bandwagon.
I will name every single starting quarterback, every quarterback that started a game since 2000. So miss me with that. I watched Keith Null. I watched Kyle Bowler. You know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, you're no bandwagon fan, Jake. You don't got to convince me. I could tell with your vast historic knowledge of the St. Louis Rams, or maybe even the LA Rams before they went back to St. Louis. Who knows? Flick Shorts, I want y'all to win so you don't get a good draft pick. All right.
I mean, that's not cool, man.
Come on now. I don't care about no draft pick, man. I want to win out. I don't care, man. I have the Jets upset in the Rams, Jake.
What you got? What score?
I got it being a 28-24 and an Aaron Rodgers come from behind win. I think that the ball's going to be in his hands. The Jets down by, 4 points or something like that. And whatever the math is, that works out. 27-24. Jets need a touchdown to win the game, and he's going to come through. I think that it's going to be a game that goes down to the wire. It's going to be classic, and the storyline is going to be, see, this is what it could have been. It's too late for the Jets, but they still figure out, and all the pro tankers in Jets land are upset. This is nothing against the Rams. I just think that, I've saw a new spark in this team, and there's also a side of me that's like, oh, here I go again, buying into this team after beating the Jaguars. They're going to be the Jets and probably lose in a hilarious way. That's probably the most likely scenario. But there's 3 games left in the season, Jake, so I'm just going to go out on holding out hope because I'm known in the Jets community as the optimist, and I kind of came off of that when the Jets started really caving this season, and I started losing my mind and ranting and just becoming a negative Nancy. One. Yeah, they broke me in that game, Jake. That was a new version of myself. I didn't know that I had that in me, and I just lost my entire positive energy. So I'm trying to come back. I'm trying to find it, Jake. I'm trying to find my true self. So I'm going to pick the Jets to win the upset in this game, 28-24, to comeback win.
Hey, that'd be a fun game. Obviously, I don't want the Rams to lose, but 28-24. I have them scoring 24, but I have the Rams scoring 3 more points than your 28. Of course, I have the Rams winning 31-24. I think it'll be fun. I do. I think it'll be a fun game. I got a lot of respect for the Jets and their fans and the way they treated me just 1 year doing it. I just gave it a shot. Probably will never do it again because I'm doing the Yankees and Rams. This is just way too chaotic. But it was cool covering the Jets for a year,
We'll welcome you back, Jake.
Yeah. So I do have a soft spot for them.
A lot to talk about when you suck.
Yeah.
A lot to talk about. Even when we suck, there's still headliner
Hey, that Browns
news.
game, man. I'll never forget that Browns game. The onside kick that they got.
Oh, my gosh.
That was amazing.
That was my reaction to that.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, my reaction to that game went viral, and I was on a Prime Video roast show. They were roasting me.
Oh.
Yeah, it was hilarious. It was like this Prime Video NFL kind of roast show, and they featured me in it. They're like, look at this guy thinking the Jets are good, losing his mind. It's like, oh, thanks. But that game with Joe Flacco, I'll never forget. I thought that we were going to have a good season that year.
I know. I really felt like once Zach Wilson came back, that was when they were just going to – because I had them going 10-7 that year. This year I had them going to the AFC title game. I really felt like they were going to be in for a really good year. But it is a reminder. I mean, you mentioned earlier in the episode, we were talking about it. There's a thing called a roster and there's a thing called a team. And, I'll say this right now. This is not the best Bills. This is not the most talented Bills team. This is the best Bills team. The way they play, you can just tell they're not the most talented group, but I've been really impressed with the way that they have played this year. And I think they're going to the Super Bowl, so I don't think you have anything to feel too bad about because that's a team that, if they go to the Super Bowl, it's like, all right, well, the Super Bowl, AFC title winner came out of our division,
Oh, I hope that doesn't happen, Jake.
I know, I hear you, but
I can't let you can't feed the ego of Dan Mitchell with that.
Oh,
the bragging rights can be crazy. No, but they have every chance. They're the favorites to win the whole thing for a reason. Josh Allen, MVP. I mean, it's going to be an interesting. Me and Bills Mafia right now, we're in a feud because we got into a big debate between Mahomes and Allen, and Bills Mafia hates me right now.
You don't think Allen's better than Mahomes right now?
Right now, yeah, but when it comes to career and talent and everything, I just feel like Allen's got a long way to go before he can get there. I got to see more.
I get that. It's weird for me. Mahomes is the best. I think the best take I've ever had because I said he'd be a superstar coming out of the college, and people were like, "What? Deshaun Watson and Deshaun Kaiser and Mitch Trubisky?" And I was like, "Patrick Mahomes, man, he's clearly the best in this draft." I actually got death threats for saying we should trade away Jared Goff and get him.
Wow.
Yep, it's true, but
should have done it.
But
you won our Super Bowl, so maybe you're good. You guys
I said the same thing about Lamar Jackson, too. Also got death threats because people loved Jared Goff, and I was never sold on him, but he did have 2 of the craziest games I've ever seen a quarterback play. The one against the the Vikings, where he had a perfect passer rating, and then the Monday Night Football 54-51 game against Kansas City when he went toe-to-toe with Mahomes.
That was a game. That
was wild. But Quintana, appreciate you. I think that is going to do it. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, man. Just appreciate you having me on. Big fan of the channel. Shout out to all the Rams fans. Make sure you guys check out the NFC West Roundtable. Jake holds it down and represents Rams House. So go check that out. Live Tuesdays, 9 p.m. EST, 6 p.m. PST if you're on the West Coast. So much love to everybody that supports my boy Jake here on his YouTube channel. Hit the like button for him. Subscribe. Help him to get to that 30K mark. right? 29.1. I see you, Jake. Close to 30K. It's a big milestone, man. So
Thank you, man.
keep up the grind, and big fan of the channel, and appreciate you having me on. And shout out to all the Jets fans that's tuning in. Make sure you guys go check out Jake and show him some love on his channel, even though we're Jets fans, man. He's doing a great job.
Hey, I appreciate that, Richie. And guys, definitely go and check out my guy Richie over at New York Jets Media. In addition to that, check out his show. I believe it's every morning?
Yeah, every morning.
Every morning, wake up and ball over on the Roundtable Sports YouTube channel with TD. And everybody on this channel knows TD because of his viral rants and reactions. So definitely go and do that. He puts in the work. These guys are great. Richie, TD, and of course Dan Mitchell, who you guys saw 2 weeks ago. Really appreciate them bringing me on as a member of the NFC West Roundtable, and I don't take it for granted, man. It's one of the most fun shows I've ever been a part of, and like I said off air, man, I look forward every Tuesday. Who could say that? It's like,
yeah.
Oh, I can't wait till Tuesday. Like, random as hell, but guys, definitely go and follow him. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and that's going to do it. So we'll see this weekend, but until next time.
Enjoy the game in person, Jake.
Yeah, I definitely will. Well, we'll see how it goes. I'm 0-1 on
Bundle
the
up.
year, but we got one last one.
Wow,
says
Bills fan
Jets
saying
win.
Jets win. Damn.
I know your angle. I know your angle. I know that you don't want them to get a good pick.
Oh man, you guys are. It's a lose-lose for the Jets apparently, because if we win, bad draft pick. If we lose, they suck. You can't ever win.
I know. It's unfair. All right, guys. Take care, and I'll see you soon.